Okay. I am back, and I have no idea if we have sound or not. So if you are on Facebook, would you let me know if we're live? We're going to go with it. All right. Our first book today is Pussycat, and it is a book of rhymes.
I love my rhyming books.
Kaylee loves her rhyming books. Okay.
I love them too.
Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London to look at the Queen. Pussycat, pussycat, what did you there? I frightened a little mouse under her chair. What is that mouse doing? What is that mouse doing?
Giving the cat a kiss.
A kiss. That's a very nice way of looking at it. I like that. To market, to buy a fat pig. Home again, jiggity jig. To market, to buy a fat hog. Home again, jiggity dog. Let's see. Hey, diddle, diddle, the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such fun, and the dish ran away with the spoon. And that is the funniest picture of the dish running away with the spoon that I have ever seen. I always love when I read this one because it is so silly. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. It wasn't that I forget it. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? Do you know there are how many 4 and 20 is? 20 plus
Mama?
4. That's 24 blackbirds. How do they fit all those blackbirds in there?
Mom?
Huh. What's up?
I think it's funny how they built in all the blackbirds to one single pie.
That was very silly. Rain on the green grass, rain on the tree, rain on the rooftop, but not on me. Check real quick and see if anybody is actually on Facebook and telling me that this is not working.
26.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Sorry about that.
Mom, what did you do?
I love this one. Wash the dishes, wipe the dishes, ring the bell for tea. 3 good wishes, 3 good kisses I will give to thee. Mwah, mwah, mwah. 3. Sally go round the sun, Sally go round the moon, Sally go round the chimney top on a Sunday afternoon. Whee! Do you know what a chimney top is? Mm-mm. It's actually the smokestack where the smoke comes out when you have a fire in your house. Okay. Our next book is My Big Glitter Book, Learning Opposites. Let's see. So we have, I'm gonna have to scooch over here, kiddo, because I have to be able to read this one. I do not have this one memorized. Oof. Oof. Oof.
I want
Shove my kid out of the way. There we go. All right. Come over here, kiddo. Tommy and Minnie are lying in bed. Minnie is tired and has closed her eyes. Tommy is still reading an exciting book. What objects can be turned on and off?
the lamp.
The lamps. Good job. The
knew it
lamps
was-
can be turned on and
Mama?
off.
I just love this one because you asked me
Because I ask you questions. Tommy and Minnie are organizing a race. Everyone is participating for fun. Which animal is slow and which is fast?
The slow one is this turtle. It's the slowest because my snails go pretty fast, Mom.
Your snails go pretty fast, so the snail would go faster than the turtle. How about the rabbit? Is it fast or slow? Fast. The weather is lovely for playing outside. It's beautiful out here today. I hope you guys got to play outside. Playing with a ball is fun. Playing together is even more fun. Who is playing together and who is playing alone?
The wrong way.
This kid is playing alone.
And they are playing together.
Yes. Tonight, Tommy and Minnie want to watch a movie with a friend. Who opens the door and who closes the door?
She's closing their bedroom door.
She's closing their bedroom door so that they can't see how messy the bedroom is because we cleaned up the living room. And he's opening the door for their friend.
Mm-hmm.
At the zoo, Tommy is admiring an elephant. Minnie is looking at a giraffe. Who has a thick neck and who has a thin one?
The elephant is thick and the giraffe is thin.
Good job. Tommy and Minnie are exercising. Minnie is lifting weights. Tommy cannot lift his. Which weights are light and which are heavy?
Minnie's are and Tommy's are heavy.
Yeah. Minnie is proud of her new shiny car. Tommy is following her with his car. Which car is big and which car is small?
That one's small and that one's big.
What color is the small one?
Red.
Red.
And the big is green.
Good job. Tommy and Minnie spend the night at Grandma's. They get to sleep in bunk beds. Who sleeps on top and who sleeps on the bottom? Is Tommy on the top? Mm-hmm. And Minnie is on the bottom. Tommy and Minnie are visiting the farm. They are watching how the pigs play in the mud. Which pigs are dirty and which pig is clean?
That one is clean and those are dirty.
The ones in the mud pit are dirty, aren't they? I bet that clean pig is going to get dirty pretty soon. Molly and Billy are going to bed. They wave good night to the moon. Where are the lights off and where are they on?
Hers are off and his is on. That one's on and that one's off.
Yeah, this one is off and this one is on. This one is off and this one is on. And as Kaylee always liked to remind me when she was very little, the lights of the moon and the stars are also on. Molly and Billy are treating themselves. Molly is having ice cream and Billy is drinking hot chocolate. What is warm and what is cold? What's warm and what is cold, Kaylee? She's reading our next book. The hot chocolate is warm. You know how I can tell?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's what coming off of it?
Steam.
Steam.
And that is cold.
And ice cream is cold. Molly and Billy are outside. It's raining. On the road, large puddles are forming. A truck drives through one. Who gets wet and who stays dry?
That one's staying dry and that one's wet.
That's right. The one with the umbrella will stay dry because she has an umbrella. Do you think she should share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the airport.
Molly, that's the airport. Molly and Billy are playing with the blocks. They each build a wall in the blocks they have. Who has many blocks and who has few?
That one has many blocks. Oops.
The bunny has few and the sheep has lots. Molly and Billy are taking a walk in the park with their nephew, niece, and grandpa, which completely throws off my idea of how old Molly and Billy were. Who is old and who is young? Who's old and who's young, Kaylee? The babies are young, and this elder friend is old.
What's an elder?
It means they're older than us. Which, that means makes me your elder. It's vacation. Molly and Billy are going to travel with the train. Which carriage of the two is full and which carriage is empty?
That one's full and that one's empty.
That's right. The blue one is full and the green one is empty.
But they probably don't.
Now, I am going to start the first chapter of a chapter book called Bunnicula. Today, vegetables, and tomorrow, the world, a rabbit tale of mystery. By Deborah and James Howe. This was one of my favorite books when I was a kid. Kaylee's a little scared of it because the bunny has sharp teeth, but I will tell you right now, it's not really scary. So it's okay. Okay. We have to read the editor's note in this case. The book you are about to read was brought to my attention in a most unusual way. One Friday afternoon, just before closing time, I heard a scratching sound at the front door of my office. When I opened the door, there before me stood a sad-eyed, droopy-eared dog carrying a large plain envelope in his mouth. He dropped it at my feet, gave me a soulful glance, and with great, quiet dignity sauntered away. Inside the envelope was the manuscript of the book you now hold in your hands, together with this letter. Gentlemen, the enclosed story is true. It happened in this very town to me and the family with whom I reside. I have changed the names of the family in order to protect them, but in all other respects, everything you will read here is factual. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Harold. I come to writing purely by chance. My full-time occupation is dog. I live with Mr. and Mrs. X, called here the Monroes, and their two sons, Toby, aged 8, and Pete, aged 10. Also sharing our home is a cat named Chester, whom I am pleased to call my friend. We were a typical American family, and still are, though the events related in my story have, of course, had their effect on our lives. I hope you will find this tale of sufficient interest to yourself and your readers to warrant its publication. Sincerely, Harold X. Chapter 1, The Arrival. I shall never forget the first time I laid these now tired old eyes on our visitor. I had been left home by the family with the admonition to take care of the house until they returned. That's something they always say to me when they go out. Take care of the house, Harold. You're the watchdog. I think it's their way of making up for not taking me with them. As if I wanted to go anyway. You can't lie down at the movies and still see the screen, and people think you're being impolite if you fall asleep and start to snore or scratch yourself in public. No, thank you. I'd rather be stretched out on my favorite rug in front of a nice whistling radiator. But I digress. I was talking about that first night. Well, it was cold. And the rain was pelting the windows, the wind was howling, and it felt pretty good to be indoors. I was lying on the rug with my head on my paws, just staring absently at the front door. My friend Chester was curled up on the brown velvet armchair, which years ago he'd staked out as his own. I saw that once again he'd covered the whole seat with his cat hair, and I chuckled to myself, picturing the scene tomorrow. Next to grasshoppers, there is nothing that frightens Chester more than the vacuum cleaner. In the midst of this reverie, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't even bother to get up and see who it was. I knew it had to be my family, the Monroes, since it was about time for the movie to be over. After a moment, the front door flew open. There they stood in the doorway, Toby and Pete and Mom and Dad Monroe. There was a flash of lightning, and in its glare I noticed that Mr. Monroe was carrying a little bundle, a bundle with tiny, glistening eyes. Pete and Toby bounded into the room. And there was a picture of everybody arriving.
I want to see.
Both talking at the top of their lungs. Toby shouted, "Put him over here, Dad!" "Take your boots off, you're soaking wet," replied his mother, somewhat calmly, I thought, under the circumstances. "But Mom, what about the—" "First, stop dripping on the carpet." "Would somebody like to take this?" asked Mr. Monroe, indicating the bundle with the eyes. "I'd like to remove my coat." "I will," Pete yelled. "No, I will," said Toby. "I found him." "You'll drop him." "I will not." "You will too." "Mom, Pete punched me." "I'll take him," said Mrs. Monroe. "Take off your coats this minute." But she became so involved in helping the boys out of their coats that she didn't take him at all. My tranquil evening had been destroyed, and no one had even said hello to me. I whimpered, oh, to remind them that I was there. "Harold!" cried Toby. "Guess what happened to me?" And then, all over again, everyone started talking at once. At this point, I feel I must explain something. In our family, everyone treats everyone else with great respect for his or her intelligence. That goes for the animals as well as the people. Everything that happens to them is explained to us. It's never been just, "Good boy, Harold," or "Use the litter box, Chester," at our house. Oh, no. With us, it's, "Hey, Harold, Dad got a raise, and now we're in a higher tax bracket." Or, "Come sit on the bed, Chester, and watch this Wild Kingdom show. Maybe you'll see a relative." Which shows just how thoughtful they are. Hang on a sec. Okay. Which shows just how thoughtful they are. But after all, Mr. Monroe is a college professor, and Mrs. Monroe is a lawyer. So we think of it as a rather special household. And we are, therefore, rather special pets. So it wasn't at all surprising to me that they took the time to explain the strange circumstances surrounding the arrival of the little bundle with the glistening eyes now among us. It seems that they had arrived at the theater late, and rather than trip over the feet of the audience already seated, they decided to sit in the last row, which was empty. They tiptoed in and sat down very quietly so they wouldn't disturb anyone. Suddenly, Toby, who's the little one, sprang up from his chair and squealed that he had sat on something. Mr. Monroe told him to stop making a fuss and move to another seat. But in an unusual display of independence, Toby said he wanted to see just what it was that he had sat on. An usher came over to their row to shush them, and Mr. Monroe borrowed his flashlight. What they found on Toby's chair was the little blanketed bundle that was now sitting on Mr. Monroe's lap. They now unwrapped the blanket, and there in the center was a tiny black and white rabbit, sitting in a shoebox filled with dirt. A piece of paper had been tied to his neck with a ribbon. There were words on the paper, but the Monroes were unable to decipher them because they were in a totally unfamiliar language. I moved closer for a better look. Now, most people might call me a mongrel, but I have some pretty fancy bloodlines running through these veins, and a Russian wolfhound happens to be one of them. Because my family got around a lot, I was able to recognize the language as an obscure dialect of the Carpathian mountain region. Roughly translated, it read, "Take good care of my baby." But I couldn't tell if it was a note from the bereaved mother or a piece of Romanian sheet music. The little guy was shivering from fear and cold. It was decided that Mr. Monroe and the boys would make a house for him out of an old crate and some heavy-duty wire mesh from the garage. For the night, the boys would make a bed for him in the shoebox. Toby and Pete ran outside to find the crate, and Mrs. Monroe went to the kitchen to get him some milk and lettuce. Mr. Monroe sat down, a dazed expression in his eyes, as if he were wondering how he came to be sitting in his own living room in a wet raincoat with a strange bunny on his lap. I signaled to Chester, and the two of us casually moseyed over to a corner of the room. We looked at each other. "Well, what do you think?" I asked. "I don't think rabbits like milk," he answered. Chester and I were unable to continue our conversation because a deafening crash commanded our attention. Pete yelled from the hallway, "Ma, Toby broke the rabbit's house!" "I didn't. I just dropped it. Pete won't let me carry it. It's too big. Toby's too little." "I am not. You are too." "Okay, fellas," Mrs. Monroe called out as she entered with the milk and lettuce. "Let's try to get in here with as little hysteria as possible, please." Chester turned to me and said under his breath, That lettuce looks repulsive, but if there's any milk left, I get it." I certainly wasn't going to argue with him. I'm a waterman myself. At that moment, the crate arrived, barely standing the strain of being pulled in two directions at once. "Ma, Toby says he's going to keep the rabbit in his room. That's not fair. Harold sleeps in his room." Only sometimes, I thought, when I know he's got a leftover ham sandwich in his drawer. Toby's a nice kid, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't hurt that he shares his stash with me. It was, after all, at one of those late-night parties in Toby's room that I first developed my taste for chocolate cake. And Toby, noting my preference, has kept me in chocolate cake ever since. Pete, on the other hand, doesn't believe in sharing. And the only time I tried to sleep on his bed, he rolled over on me and pinned me by my ears so that I couldn't move for the rest of the night. I had a crick in my neck for days. "But he's mine," Toby said. "I found him." "You sat on him, you mean?" "I found him and he's sleeping in my room." "You can keep smelly old Harold in your room, and Chester too if you want to, but I'm going to keep the rabbit in mine." Smelly old Harold? I would have bitten his ankle, but I knew he hadn't changed his socks for a week. Smelly indeed. Mr. Monroe spoke up. "I think the best place for the rabbit is right here in the living room on the table by the window. It's light here and he'll get lots of fresh air." "Pete's taller than I am," Toby cried. "He'll be able to see the rabbit better." "Too bad, Squirt." "Okay," said Mrs. Monroe through clenched teeth. "Let's put him to bed and make him comfortable, and then we can all get some sleep." "Why?" Pete asked. "I don't want to go to sleep." Mrs. Monroe smiled a little too sweetly at Pete. "Look, Ma," said Toby, "he's not drinking his milk." Chester nudged me in the ribs. "Didn't I tell you?" he asked. "Excuse me while I make myself available." "Hey," said Toby, "we got to name him." "Can't that wait until tomorrow?" asked Mr. Monroe. The boys shouted in unison, "No, he has to have a name right now." I have to say, I agreed with them. It took them 3 days to name me, and those were the 3 most anxious days of my life. I couldn't sleep at all, worrying that they were really going to call me Fluffy, as Mrs. Monroe had suggested. "Well, all right," sighed Mrs. Monroe. "What about, say, Bun?" Uh-oh, there she goes again, I thought. Where does she get them? "Yuck," we all said. "Well then, how about Fluffy?" she offered hopefully. Pete looked at his mother and smiled. "You never give up, do you, Ma?" Meanwhile, Chester, who had also been named Fluffy for a short time, was rubbing against Mrs. Monroe's ankles and purring loudly. "No, Chester, not now," she said, pushing him aside. "He wants to help us name him, don't you, Chester?" Toby asked as he scooped him up into his arms. Chester shot me a look. I could tell this was not what he had in mind. "Come on, Harold," Toby called. "You've got to help with the name, too." I joined the family and serious thinking began. We all peered into the box. It was the first time I'd really seen him. So, this is a rabbit, I thought. He sort of looks like Chester, only he's got longer ears and a shorter tail, and a motor in his nose. It's okay. the covering.
Well,
said Pete after a moment, since we found him at the movies, why don't we call him Mr. Johnson? There was a moment of silence. Who's Mr. Johnson? asked Toby. The guy who owns the movie theater, Pete answered. No one seemed to like the idea. How about Prince? Said Mr. Monroe. Dad, are you kidding? Said Toby. Well, I had a dog named Prince once, he replied lamely. Prince, I thought. That's a silly name for a dog. We found him in a Dracula movie. Let's call him Dracula, Toby said. That's a stupid name, said Pete. No, it's not. And anyway, I found him, so I should get to name him. Mom, you're not going to let him name him, are you? That's favoritism, and I'll be traumatized if you do. Mrs. Monroe looked in wonder at Pete. Please, Mom, please, Dad, let's name him Dracula, cried Toby. Please, please, please. And with each please, he squeezed Chester a little harder. Mrs. Monroe picked up the bowl of milk and moved toward the kitchen. Chester followed her every movement with his eyes, which now seemed to be popping out of his head. When she reached the kitchen door, she turned back and said, Let's not have any more arguments. We'll compromise. He's a bunny, and we found him a Dracula movie, so we'll call him Bunnicula. Bunnicula! That should make everybody happy, including me. What about me? Muttered Chester. I won't be happy till she puts down that milk. Well, guys, is that okay with you? She asked. Toby and Pete looked at one another and then at the rabbit. A smile grew on Toby's face. Yeah, Ma, I think that name is just right. We're now on chapter 2. We will pick this up again tomorrow. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we enjoyed reading to you. We will talk to you later. You want to say get your hands off your nose. Mom life. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.